I met Andre about months ago, and we started discussing the difference between each ecosystem, New York City, San Francisco, Lisbon. And he pretty much just gave me his idea behind Explorer Festivals. I didn't quite know much about Beta I, but I did know that Beta I worked with Sandbox Network, and I am connected through Sandbox because I'm a Sandbox fellow. So that's how we have come to really know each other.
And what was it really interested to you about the Explorers Festival? What caught up your attention?
Well, I love the whole idea behind being an explorer. I think a lot of us don't really understand it, or maybe have come to learn about it through others, pushing the limits or going outside their comfort zone. So to me, I guess bringing forward these different individuals from all over the place, it's just fascinating. So if anything, I'm just, excited to see the first week of November, like what we have planned for everyone, not just Lisbon, but almost the entire world.
Can you tell us a bit more about the Exploring You?
I think we all have curiosity in us. I think that's a spark that we can nurture and develop it as each phase of our life, whether you're an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur. I've been lucky to be an entrepreneur as well as entrepreneur. So I've seen both, sides of the coin. So for me, I guess I'm just developing and understanding more, and what it is just to be an explorer in different cities and different sectors. Just the meaning behind it. So these individuals that are coming, next month are just a definition of it. So it should be great.
And how did you become interested in entrepreneurship?
Oh, I became interested with my first business when I was 15. I don't really talk about it because I was so young, and to me the word entrepreneur wasn't something as it is seen nowadays. It's seen as though you're a risk taker, or it's you're giving up a 9-to-5 job. You're a fool. You're crazy. So at 15, you just think it's something that either you kind of have to do, whether it's a collaboration with partners or parents. In this case, my case. So I started a restaurant. I didn't know anything about it. And I think that's what it is to be an explorer and an entrepreneur. You don't really go into anything knowing everything about it. You learn as you go. So I learned everything what it was to understand what the restaurant service was, what clients needed, what customers are really all about, and the priorities that you have to really have in your life. When you give yourself everything to a project or your business, it pretty much becomes your life. So at the end, it changes you. So I learned through that. I learned a lot, of failing, for whatever it was. And I took that with every project I've, given myself, wholly. And I guess that was the beginning. And I would not change anything about it. It taught me so much.
What are the things you went through that defined you as the person you are today, and what are the inspirational and exciting moments you really remember now when you look back?
Yeah, I think everything defines you. Like, to who you surround yourself with is something very important. I've learned. I think that's one of the biggest lessons. It's that phrase, tell me who you hang out with, or and I'll tell you who you are. That's the phrase that's very common, at least in my culture, and it's always been said in my family. So I think deep down, you of all people know what you want out of life and who you really want to be, and that shows a lot in the decisions you make and also what you put forward. So for me, bringing a great team together, making sure that the product does resemble, the company, and also gives everything and anything to its clients. All of that, shows a lot in the individual, or at least the team, the leadership. So I think that has been the learning, or the advantage I've had, to be surrounded by a really great individuals, nonstop. And maybe it's been luck, or maybe I just worked hard at it. I really don't believe much in luck. I do believe in working really hard and paying. At the end it pays off. And at the end it's being excited for what you're doing, because at the end it's a hard work, but it's going to come full circle.
And can you tell us a bit about more about how you started off with the Explorers Festival project?
I wrote an article for Venture Village called Explorers 2.0, and this article was about explorers being the new entrepreneurs, or vice versa, the entrepreneurs being the new explorers. And explorers, as you are taught in school when you are really young, explorers were the discoverers, right? The guy Columbus, Magellan, the Gama, they were the explorers, like the guys that discovered, Europeans that discovered America, although of course that is controversial in terms of historical perspective. But if you look to the movement, it was like that. Historically speaking, had the Chinese 1,000 years ago or 700 years ago, discovering and charting pretty much of the Indian Ocean, but it was up to Europeans to really cross all the continents and all the oceans. So I thought that we could do something related to that, like Jose was telling, that explorers was all about risk-taking, right? And in a certain sense, we have lost that risk-taking capability, not just in Portugal, but in other European countries as well. So by calling it the Explorers Festival, what I meant was a festival to celebrate risk-taking and entrepreneurship. So that's how the idea came up. And then I thought that the Explorers name is also a cool name, and it stuck.
I wanted to ask you about Portugal, if you see it as the next hub for startups, because for now Berlin is associated with startup activity. And for me as well, when I came here, I did not imagine there's such a big incubator in Lisbon. I was amazed that there are 70 startups working in Betai. So people don't know yet about it, but do you think it has the potential to really be the startup hub of Europe?
Absolutely. I think from the smallest, teeniest communities to one of the biggest cities, it has potential. It really all depends on the quality as well as what's the motivation behind the companies. Are they really immersed or driven with what's happening in technology and how it's affecting now, or bridging gaps from the smallest towns to impoverished towns, or to big cities. I think Lisbon, if anything, is a up and coming city, and has a lot of culture too and history. And I think that should also be celebrated and should also be shared, because we learn so much from our history. And I'm not Portuguese, but the times that I've been there and the people that I know and the initiatives and the companies that I've seen, they do have drive. It's a very driven. I can say the people behind it. They love what they do and they love where they come from, and I think that's a very great start. To me, it's not a shock that there already exists the 70 companies that that are working, I believe, in Betai or in Lisbon. But again, I think in order for it to just be worldwide known, collaboration has to happen more so. There has to be more engagement with different sectors. I think I think you guys know innovation happens when you can cross different sectors, when you can actually go out of your bubble, out of your comfort zone, and then make those connections between whether it's design or technology or a girl's education, whatever it may be. So for entrepreneurship to happen in any city, especially at Lisbon, I think you really have to step away and really realize exactly what's happening in other cultures / cities. And I think that's why Explorers is going to do that, or at least that's going to be the start. Bringing forward different ideas, different people with different backgrounds and experiences.
You mentioned innovation and the intersection of different industries, and that's an open question that I'm going to ask now. So whoever wants to answer, feel free. Why do you think that the U.S. is associated more with entrepreneurship and innovation than Europe for now?
First, we have to understand that we might be talking about, confusing marketing with reality. I'm not completely sure that there's more innovation going on in the United States than anywhere else in the world. I think that United States is a market in itself. It's a market with a volume, with a quantity that allows business to scale easily. But there's also an open structure that allows anybody that comes from anywhere, if their ideas are good and if you follow a certain number of rules, you can actually make your idea grow. So the American dream is still very much alive. Americans are always trying to find good examples everywhere else in the world, and then they bring them in. They invite them in and they give them, airtime. So America ends up being recognized as, if it doesn't start here, it starts in some way with some kind of U.S. help.
Andre, do you want to add something?
I think that the United States, it's an amazing economy because it's such a big market, and that really changed the game, the rules of the game. If you look to the most innovation-driven economies, the United States is almost always at the forefront. And that happens because it's a 300 million market space, and you cannot compete against that. The United States is by far the country that spends the most on research and development. And if you consider that a lot of the money that goes into defense in the United States ends up funding research and development, and it's really a way for the United States government to fund lots of research and advanced research, then the figures would be even higher. So, I think that the United States is what it is today a lot because of the Cold War and of the technological hedge that it got during the Cold War, because it was forced to compete against the world, and because the United States wants to be the leading nation, the hegemonic power. It really needs to spend lots of money towards producing research and development, and that research and development eventually goes into innovative products sooner or later. And that's basically the engine of growth of the United States for the last 60 or 70 years after World War II, and I truly believe that will keep to be the engine of growth of the United States for the next years.
Okay, but we have to find good reasons to say why should everybody come to Portugal. My understanding from the data I remember reading somewhere is that we have even more square footage, let's put it that, in the ocean than square footage in land. And also, if you look at the world market, whatever Portuguese products are being consumed, what is our market? What is our potential market? And if you think of other countries. So we just have to also, and because again, this is something that there is no way we can change ever, okay? Which is the size of our internal market. Done. And even though we could play games with many of the other countries in Europe, we're just incapable of doing that. So the only thing we have is challenge ourselves. What is these notions of internal market, huger market, larger market, overall market? Challenge these assumptions and just really think on a more global scale and understand where do we want to reach with our language, with our products, with our services. So this is something that we need to do, because otherwise it's always going to continue to be a limitation that we will never ever be able to solve it.
The insight is that if you want an economy to be developed, you should have five basic assumptions or steps, which I believe would lead to a more economic and just country. The first one is a strong bet into the psychological sides of the country. And if you look to every single nation that wants to have a leadership position, they cannot forget that the nation is essentially a psychological illusion. The second, and I'll try to make this really fast, is a strong bet on education and superior education. So universities are essentially the core and the fundamental stone for economic development. The third one is the development of the diaspora or the development of the foreign communities. And the fifth element is R&D expenditure and how that R&D expenditure translates into innovation from the private market or for the private market.
This was a very enjoyable conversation. Take care, Kalina. Take care, Andrea. Bye.
Bye-bye, Jose.
Bye-bye.